Oh man, when you talk about the definition of forecasting with friends, that is exactly what we are doing today, because we have an old friend with, well, he's young, but an old friend with us, Cameron Batiste, who's a meteorologist with the National Weather Service Houston-Galveston office, and one of our former interns from 10 years ago.
Time flies.
I can't believe that's been that long.
No, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. So you've had great success, Texas A&M University, moving on to aviation meteorologist, and now working for the National Weather Service.
Oh yeah, it's definitely been a dream come true, especially to work in my hometown where I grew up at and get to serve the community I love. You know, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, not many people. Weather service jobs are hard to come by.
They are,
aren't they?
Yeah, I'm impressed that you were able to kind of get in on the Houston-Galveston because again, home, right? And so able to get in there right away. That's good work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Maybe
definitely very lucky.
Yeah, totally making it happen. Well, there's probably some
there's a
skills.
lot of skill in there. It's not all just luck.
It's all luck, but yeah, for sure, it's fun to have you. And one of the main reasons we've invited Cameron, we're going to talk about later in the newscast, because he has a bit of a signature that he likes to put in some of his forecast discussions, and we're going to dive into that a little bit later on. But we have a monster hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico.
And I'm glad that we have Cam here to as a third, opinion as to what in the world is happening here. We just got an update on Hurricane Milton, Cat 5, 160 mile-per-hour winds. Now, this is an area that is prepping for it. We actually have a live view right now from Clearwater Beach, Florida, where the latest from the Hurricane Center is they're looking at 8 to 12 foot storm surge possible. Of course, it all depends on exactly where the center makes landfall. But I mean, if that happens, that kind of worst case scenario, this pier that you're looking at, could be destroyed potentially. There's nobody on that beach, as they have asked for evacuations. And so that's a look at Milton there at the bottom of your screen, the eye becoming visible. Here's that the floater visible imagery that gives us minute by minute. I mean, this thing's not really undergoing any shear. It seems like it's just spreading out in all directions. So, yikes. Pretty scary stuff. So this is the latest from the Hurricane Center, their newest advisory. In fact, they did an intermediate advisory there, 160 mile-per-hour maximum sustained winds. It is moving to the east-southeast still.
Yeah, it's going the wrong way.
Yeah, it hasn't made that turn yet off toward the north, but nevertheless, it is expected to do so. And here's the forecast track showing it staying at Category 5, and then, gosh, wishful thinking that it ends up making landfall as a 3 instead of a 4 or a 5. But still, you're looking at a significant storm, and if it does hit right there, which, by the way, the center of their cone aligns almost exactly with the GFS model. So if it were to hit there, that would be like worst case scenario for Tampa Bay. Just huge storm surge.
You got to get it south of Tampa Bay, right? I mean, because
for them,
that storm surge
oh
anywhere to the north at all. And Mike, I'm going to trust your Florida knowledge more than mine on a couple questions or discussions that I had about this system. Number one is that angle that it comes in there. If it's a perpendicular, a 90-degree angle, or as opposed to more of this 45 coming in, on what that does to storm surge.
Worse.
Yeah. Worse this way.
Yeah. Because that's what remember Hurricane Ian from 3 years ago, which was a Cat 5, Cat 4 / Cat 5, hit at this kind of angle, but down to the south. Yeah. And had just that historic, catastrophic storm surge. So, but Cam, what do you think about, there are eye wall replacement cycles. Like these, they don't stay Category 5s usually forever.
Yeah, exactly. So they undergo what's called eye wall replacement cycles, and that usually weakens it by a couple of categories at least. And hopefully it undergoes one before it makes landfall, that'll make it a weaker hurricane before it makes landfall.
So fingers crossed on that. I mean, but even a Category 3.
That sounds so odd that we're hoping for a 3.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, and if it's a 5 and then weakens to a 4, and even if it weakens to a 3, it still has built up all of that storm surge ahead of it. you know, it's really got a head of steam, even if the winds, you know, might calm down a little bit before landfall. So, yeah, this thing is awful. And to think Beryl, you know, you were probably like, I mean, we were super busy, but you were probably super busy with Beryl.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That, you know, being a Category 1, it's hard to even fathom, you know, what a 4 would be like if it hit here.
Exactly.
What was your work shift, just real quick? What were you doing during Beryl?
During Beryl, I was issuing flash flood warnings. So if you got any warnings on your phone, that was me. So
For Beryl?
yeah, for Beryl.
Yeah, okay. And
not that warning, that blue alert that went out the other day.
That was definitely not me.
Had the
Yeah,
whole state.
and like us, where I spent the night here for Beryl, were you? I mean, you guys have like bunks and things. Were you at the building all night, or were the other folks were taking care of that shift?
I was on a night shift, so
Yeah.
we did 12-hour shifts. I was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Yeah.
We didn't sleep at the office though. At least I didn't.
Okay.
But yeah, we do between 7 p.m., 7 a.m., and 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for tropical operations, and I was on a night shift that night.
Yeah, yeah, we switched to those 12-hour shifts as well, of course, here, and yeah, it depends on what 12 hours you're talking about, but yeah, that's, you know, you mentioned Beryl being just a Cat 1.
Right.
I just think it's interesting how we had a direct hit. We had how many million people without power? Or,
Yeah.
you know, almost
Oh,
3
yeah.
million people without
Oh, yeah.
power, and that storm has almost been forgotten in this hurricane season. It was
Yeah.
so long ago, and it was the weaker of what of the impacts of what we've seen. And we thought Helene for sure would going to be that. This is it, right? Helene's the storm of 2024.
That's the big storm.
Yeah,
of the
we're not
year.
going to
Yeah,
have. We're
that's the big
not
storm
like
of the year.
next year at the hurricane conferences. We're going to be talking about Helene, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. This Milton. Now, here's what I also wanted to ask you on your Florida knowledge. I thought I read somewhere that this is going to end up being the largest hurricane evacuation.
They said it was the largest
since like 2017 or
yeah,
some kind of.
I think it has to do with the fact that it's pointed at such a big Tampa is a big growing area. So it's similar in size now to Miami. You know, you've got like millions, you know, of people there. And so when you, in fact, this graphic, I said that it's 155, it's up to 160 now. But that west coast of Florida, and in fact, just like Texas, Florida has seen big growth in their population.
Along the coast.
Like a lot. And of course, everybody moves to the coastline, you know. And so you've got millions and millions of people there in that metropolitan area, and they need to get out of Dodge. And so the tough thing about Florida is, it's like for us, you could drive to Dallas or you could drive to Austin or something. But I mean, Florida's a peninsula, and there's not, even if you evacuate to the middle of the state, it's
maybe
still pretty bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely still pretty bad. Hey, I had a couple of graphics that I wanted to show you here because I posted like a not snarky, but like semi, because, you know, there was a United States representative who said they're controlling the weather kind of thing. They control the weather, and if you don't think so, then you're out of your mind, whatever it was. And so I wrote something like, you know, the storm that's forming in the Gulf right now is natural. It's you know, not unprecedented, and it's not being controlled by a nefarious, you know, people with a weather machine. And then, so somebody asked, well, you know, how often does this happen that you have something like this in October? And at first I said, well, you know, it's really not that uncommon to have October hurricanes. But now that this one has gotten so strong, I'm starting to rethink, well, not rethink the weather control thing, but like, but, you know, maybe they are. No, but I'm starting to rethink it. Maybe it's not really that precedented. So I have a couple of graphics that I want to show you here. So this is a look at all of the October hurricanes. I put storms. These are October hurricanes over the last 50 years. And by the way, on the left-hand side of your screen, there was one that hit the Houston area. That was Hurricane Jerry in 1989. Kind of a glancing blow. So October hurricane strikes in Texas are very rare. But there have been a bunch. You know, you look around, you're like, okay, yeah, there have been several October hurricanes. But if you really,
and this is just the last 50 years.
This is just the last 50 years.
Gotcha, yeah.
So then I decided, well, let me make it more interesting. So I came up with this graphic here, which shows hurricanes, at least in the record, since 1850. And these are storms that passed at some point within 100 miles of Tampa. And I want everybody to know I did not individually draw these lines myself. The computer did it. But there's only two lines you see there that came from the basic area, like the general area where Milton is located right now. And the fact that they're skinny and yellow, that means that they were category 1s. So it is sort of a little bit unprecedented to have something form there in October or November and move toward Tampa. So, you know, I suppose the world is getting weirder and weirder.
Cameron, you shared with us that you have been off of work since Thursday. You're the shift work, so you know you get your days off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When I'm off, I try to unplug a little bit from unnecessary weather information. I'm a little bit in touch and social media and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just curious. Like, did you just wake up and be like, what, a category 5 hurricane? How'd that go for you?
It kind of did feel like that when I left shift on Thursday morning. I believe it was still like a 30 or 40% chance in the Gulf of Mexico. And then I think over the weekend became like 90%. And then we got a hurricane. Now it's a category 5. And happens pretty fast sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you something. I said maybe I shouldn't ask you. I will express this as an opinion, and I won't ask for your opinion. All government agencies are slow to adapt to things. Like, for example, the National Hurricane Center just modified their cone of uncertainty to like include inland warnings and things like that, which is probably a long time coming. But with the flooding that happened in North Carolina, there's talk now that there might be a new type of flood watch. Have you guys talked about that, where they were going to do, instead of just a regular flood watch or flash flood watch, it was going to be something like extreme flood watch or, you know, a catastrophic flood watch or something like that? Because like the flood watches that we get put under when we are going to have
and
heavy
they've even
rain,
changed those recently.
Right, it went from flash flood watch to flood watch, right?
Yeah.
So like it's like if Asheville, North Carolina is going to get 30 inches of rain in a day, and we're going to have saturated ground and some scattered downpours, that prompts a flood. They're both flood watches, you know. So there's some talk about maybe that should be adjusted, changed, reworded, you know. But that's got to go through whole committees. And, you know what I mean? It takes a long, long time. So anyway, I thought that was interesting because, you know, Florida's under flood watch and we get put under flood. So they're not all created equal, which I guess is up to us to explain.
It all depends like on the wording you put in, like in the actual flood watch itself. So you can choose to put in some more aggressive wording if it's supposed to be like a more significant event, or if it's not supposed to be too significant, you can sort of keep it as like the base regular flood watch.
Speaking of aggressive wording, one of the Weather Service forecasters, when Helene hit, used some of that terminology that we saw with Ike, which was unsurvivable storm surge. Can you just write something like that yourself, or does it have to kind of go through like committee in the office?
It definitely has to go through committee by the office. Definitely has to get everybody's opinion on that. Make sure, you know, don't want to say anything that's too outlandish that will cause any controversy, things like that. So yeah, it has to be like a whole office-wide decision to put something like that in the discussion or watch.
Yeah, because I think with Ike, somebody, the local office wrote, if you don't leave, it wasn't prepare to die.
I remember it. No, I remember
something
exactly
like that,
what
wasn't
you're
it?
talking about. No, it was exactly like that. It was some of the strongest wording that had been tropical in a long time.
Yeah.
And people kind of were like, but then it was right.
Right. Yeah, it was right. Yeah, definitely.
Because it was, you know, only a category 2.
Only
or whatever.
2, but yeah, they kind of,
right.
Yeah. So anyway, coming up next.
Yeah, we want to hear from a little.
Oh wait, are we going to run?
We want to definitely. Okay. We definitely want to kind of hear a little bit from Florida, because they're obviously getting ready for this second storm to make landfall. They're still dealing a lot with Helene. So Fox News correspondent Shanley Painter takes a closer look at these preparations.
It's a war zone.
Another round of devastation could overwhelm many communities already lying in ruin in the wake of Hurricane Helene. This, as forecasters say, Hurricane Milton strengthened Sunday in the Gulf and is creeping closer.
It's going to start picking up the pace there as it comes closer to Florida before it makes landfall, likely sometime on Wednesday afternoon.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says it's too early to tell with 100% accuracy where Milton could impact. Forecasters looking at possible tracks suggest Milton could strike in the Tampa Bay region before moving across central Florida and making its way out into the Atlantic.
The path comes right over us, so I'm hoping it changes a little bit so we don't get all the rain, but we see what the constant rain can do. It just floods the area.
If you are not feeling comfortable, if your home is not safe to live in, it's good to find another place to go, whether it's with friends or a hotel.
Governor DeSantis on Sunday expanding a state of emergency declaration to include 51 counties.
I have water, I have canned goods, I have flashlights, I have pretty much everything else I need.
He's warning potential destruction from Milton could be amplified because of the vast amount of debris from Helene that's still lingering around many neighborhoods. DeSantis is calling for local contractors to quickly bolster removal.
Just sitting there is a hazard.
Forecasters say Milton could potentially reach Category 4 status, but weaken to a Category 3 before landfall. FEMA's administrator says the agency is already making preparations. I'm Chanley Pager, Fox News.
Fox 26 is
Anonymous.
the Fox 26 YouTube page. Like and subscribe today.
Cameron, what do you think of that theme music? I don't like it.
I don't know.
Do you have an
It's kind of
opinion?
catchy.
Is it?
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't like it.
It's the classic podcast type of music where it gets in your blood, and that you wouldn't be able to watch Forecasting with Friends without it now.
We are 3 red-blooded American males here, and I don't like that music.
I'm not saying I like any of the podcast music, but that's kind of what it is.
Director Juan, do you like that music? No, Juan doesn't like it either. I'm going to petition the promotions department, see if we can get something a little bit,
You know what they would want us to do is to have
Meteor.
some sort of interactive thing with our viewers, and where we could get some engagement. And
Maybe we'll ask
us,
them.
We could tell us what to choose.
All right, I'm off my soapbox.
Okay.
Let's talk about Cameron Batiste.
This is why Cameron's here. We're so excited that you're here because Cameron has a specialty. Has a little bit of a flair. I have to give a little backstory, Cameron. You can fill in here as you will. Sure. Works for the Weather Service office here in Houston-Galveston, and part of what they do is they put out a forecast, obviously, right? But there's something called a forecast discussion, which is basically the explanation of the forecast. So, you know, you can look at their forecast and it says, oh, the high is going to be 90 degrees today. Well, if you're like, why is it going to be 90 degrees high today? You can then read the forecast discussion, and it is a couple paragraphs, and sometimes it can get a little technical.
Yep, it depends who's writing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get really into the weeds.
And and traditionally speaking, it has been a little bit more technical than conversational, we'll say. But in the recent years, even before Cameron, even before I think you kind of joined in on it, it had become a little bit more conversational. But Cameron likes to have themes with his forecast discussion. Not every one, but occasionally you'll do one, and then you'll write in some things to kind of go with it. So I'm gonna read this forecast discussion, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So hang in there, everybody, as I read through this. This is a forecast discussion from the 29th of September. So this is about 2 weeks, I guess now. 2 weeks out.
This is the National Coffee Day one?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. Here's the forecast discussion. Since the weather continues to be rather uneventful throughout the short-term period, let's at least make talking about it a little interesting. Today is National Coffee Day, so I have something good brewing up. Trust me, you're going to love this a latte. The forecast for Sunday can only be described as fabulous as we start out the morning in the lows to mid 60s, and some locations across the Brazos Valley may drop into the upper 50s again. Cool beans. Drier air remains in place. PW values around 1.0 inches. We will keep pleasant conditions grounded with skies remaining mostly clear. The other effects of drier air is that it heats up rather efficiently with 850 millibar temperatures approaching the 90th percentile.
Technical part.
We're firmly in above normal territory with warmer air mixing into the surface, leading to high temperatures in the low to mid 90s. That's not exactly roasting territory, but we do get pretty close to that on Monday. How are we doing so far?
So far, so good.
You get the idea of what Cameron likes to do here. I got one more paragraph with that. Temperatures on Monday might mocha quite few of us to go crazy with highs reaching the mid. That was a little bit of a stretch to add the mocha there, but that was okay. High reaching the mid 90s for most locations and a few spots reaching the upper 90s. Do we call this third summer after our second false fall? I'm having deja brew for the last time. Either way, astronomical fall isn't exactly going smoothly for us at this point with a constant stirring of temperatures. Speaking of that, overnight temperatures will see similar upward trends with lows on Sunday night in the mid to the upper 60s, followed by lows in the upper 60s, low 70s on Monday night. I suppose asking for cooler temperatures to stick around for more than 3 days at this point in the year is a tall order.
I get it.
Caught that one. And the main axis of the upper level trough extending southward from the Ohio River Valley will finally shift eastward on Monday night, which will allow for additional low-level moisture to filter in. Last but not least, with the increasing low-level moisture comes increasing potential for patchy fog, especially for areas south of I-10 and west of I-45 during the early morning hours.
Yeah, where do you get inspiration to write something like that?
This is fantastic.
It's such a technical environment.
This is fantastic.
It kind of half and half between ideas I get randomly and half between ideas I pick up like from a National Day calendar. So like I saw that Sunday would be National Coffee Day. I was like, let's have fun with it.
You were already brewing it at that point.
Exactly.
Nice.
But that's it. Look, you guys are already working a lot. I mean, it's, you're working a lot down there, but that takes a lot of extra time. Right? I mean, to do.
Not necessarily, at least not for me. I mean, it's kind of a weird flex, but I'm a big fan of like puns and dad jokes like that. So it's been something that just like comes out naturally for me.
Nice. And so this is just one, and you had mentioned one of your favorites was from last summer?
Yeah, last summer I did a International Cat Day one. I had at least 20 different cat puns in there. So if you can find that one online, it's definitely worth the read.
Have you had any response from like the high ups with the Weather Service? I mean, like, has anybody said, we love it or something like that?
I think we got quite a few comments from colleagues, friends, family, members from the general public, how they like my forecast discussions and how it just increases community engagement, things like that. So it's been fun and I enjoy having new ways to present the weather.
Awesome.
My favorite, by the way, has been the Taylor Swift.
Oh,
You
yeah.
had a Taylor Swift one as well. That was
Oh,
my
yeah.
favorite.
Gotta wear your
right.
cardigans.
Yeah.
Classic, classic, classic. All right, well, after this break, we got one more minute to visit with Cam, and we'll be right back after this.
Fox 26 is
Anonymous.
the Fox 26 YouTube page. Like and subscribe today.
All right, hey guys, quick look at your 7-day forecast. It's looking beautiful. I mean, it's amazing how different it is on one side of the Gulf of Mexico versus the other, but we are looking high and dry, cool mornings, warm days. I can't say it as eloquently as you would.
You got any coming up that you already spotted? Any theme days?
Not necessarily. Well, I could probably make something work with the upcoming cool mornings. Have some lows in the 50s up north, and hopefully down in the Houston area. But I guess we'll see about that. But yeah, I could probably think something up for this week.
Maybe like something about the 50s and like, I don't know, Little Richard or Elvis or something like that. Like the 50s, you know what I mean?
Exactly, that works.
Yeah, something like that.
Got us some new themes.
Some new things. Cameron Batiste, local National Weather Service office forecaster. He's awesome. Have a great day.